Welcome to 284 Media's Just for the Record. I am Jhaka Wooding, and today I am joined by representative for the 6th District Junior Tourism Minister, Mrs. Alvera Maduro Caines. We get into those discussions after this break.
Stay tuned for more Just for the Record right after this.
Rashford made it. Manchester United have come from behind to lead.
At home or on the go, watch CCT Live. Download our app and carry your favorite TV shows, news, or live sports anywhere you go. Visit cctbvi.com/live, select your package, and tune in.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. And Mrs. Maduro Caines, of course, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right, I'd like to start things off by getting to know the candidates a bit better. So how about you walk me through your academic training and your professional career?
Well, I started school at what was then the St. Philip's Primary School in Vargas Bay. It is now named after my grandmother, Alexandrina Maduro. And we actually started school in her house because at that time the government didn't have money to give a building for her to keep school, so she kept school in her house. Then we transferred into the St. Philip's Primary School. Then I went on to the BVI High School, left the BVI High School, worked at radio stations at BVI for a couple of years as a DJ, known as the Ebony Queen. So I was on 10 to 2, called the Housewives Hour. And then I relocated to Texas, to Gary Training Center, where I studied accounting. And after 2 years, came back home, worked at the registry, at the government registry. And I moved to St. Thomas. And I worked for a concrete company named Devcon as an accountant for about 4 years. Got married, relocated here. And for the next 18, 19 years, I worked at Citco BVI Trust Company as a legal secretary. I started in IT, went to legal secretary, and then operations manager until I decided to No, actually, I left Citco after 19 years, worked as assistant postmaster for the government. And I spent a couple of years there, and then I went into politics.
All right, a very busy resume you have there.
Yes.
Now, of course, outside of professional work, a lot of people are on a search in life to find their purpose. So what do you believe your purpose is in life, and how does that align with politics?
Well, to be honest, growing up, I wanted to be a counselor, to counsel young children or to counsel people, because I find persons attach themselves to me. They would come when they have issues, and I would try to, counsel them as best as I could, lend, or sometimes they just need a listening ear. So I would listen, and try to counsel or give the help that I can. So it kind of lines up with being a politician in a sense, because a politician is not always about giving financial help. Sometimes persons just need someone to listen to or to give advice. So.
All right, now it's been a particularly difficult few years across the world and of course in the territory. Now, members of the House of Assembly were not spared from those difficulties. So what has that period of time been like for you?
It's been a time to reflect, especially during COVID era, when we had to stay indoors. So it gave you a lot of time to reflect on the country as a whole, and to come up with ways and ideas of how we could better. I think we did a good job handling it, but there can always be better ways in handling things, and how we could come up with ways to better handle this, if it means implementing more things in government, like the work. Most persons were laid off of work and there was no help, and insurance that would cover that other than Social Security. So it played a lot on my mind on how we could better do things, because I don't like to see people suffer, and hearing the stories of persons getting evicted because the job closed down, it really hit here, and I wish I could help everyone, but I can't,
Of course, politics, as much as there are different views on it, at the end of the day, you're applying for a job from the people of the Virgin Islands. Yeah. So I have a question for you that some may have seen when they go to job interviews. We don't expect things to always go smoothly, and it's important how you deal with things when they don't go according to plan. So please tell me about a challenge you faced, a time where you believe you failed, or a mistake you may have made, and how you chose to deal with it.
Well, when it comes to jobs, especially, I remember when I applied for the job as the assistant postmaster, it took me about a year before I actually got the call that I was hired, and I kept wondering, why it took so long, because I had already left the one job and applied for this job, and it took like forever, to get me back into working. But I stayed calm, I didn't fuss, I didn't, make a noise. I just stayed calm, do my little cooking, do my little cleaning to pick up the time until, I was hired. I was eventually hired as assistant postmaster. So, I don't, to be honest, I don't really fuss much about things, because I believe in God, and I believe everything happens in His time when He wants it to happen. So I have practiced not to fuss about things, because in the end is what God wants. So it makes no sense, because I would get all flustered, my pressure go up, you get heart attack, and then at the end of the day, it's still what He says. So I have learned to just relax and let God do His work.
All right, thank you for sharing that with us. Now, between the 2019 general election and the upcoming 2023 general election, a lot has changed in the territory, but some things have remained the same. So in your experience, in your personal view, what matters of concern to you have remained in that time?
Stay tuned for more Just for the Record after these messages.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got here. My name is Kamal Haynes. Most of you know me from 284 News, but now you get to see me in a different light on my very own show called Health is Wealth. We have Joel Turnbull.
I don't want you to arch your back when you're pulling down.
Milton McLean.
First of all, right, your footwork.
Stephen Payne.
That was a 9 out of 10. I know you got the service down pat.
Steve Augustine.
You did a pretty hard workout today, so perhaps...
And as you can see, it's actually
you're feeling it.
Alonzo Boynes.
Taekwondo.
Adam Murrows.
I'll speak as if you're an absolute beginner.
I am an absolute beginner.
You are an absolute beginner.
And Seth Graham.
It bites. It will bite.
Get your water, get your fruits and veggies, and experience a wealth of knowledge about getting healthy.
Here goes my new car. Guess I'm back on my bike.
Your bike? CG offers new car replacement. Remember my monster truck days? Well, one night I attempted a 50-foot pogo double backflip. I landed it and went to karaoke. It wasn't until afterward that my car got hit by that fisherman. He gave me some great mahi-mahi though. Anyway, they paid fast and got me in a new car. Now call a cab. I want you to meet my alpaca guy.
New car replacement for the first year of ownership. CG Insurance. Good like that.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us.
Now, between the 2019 general election and the upcoming 2023 general election, a lot has changed in the territory, but some things have remained the same. So in your experience, in your personal view, what matters of concern to you have remained in that time?
Matters of concern, especially when it comes to the country itself, is let's say activities of promoting tourism, because I'm big on tourism. And though, we have been blacklisted here and there, I am still encouraged to see that persons are still coming to the Virgin Islands, as a number one tourist destination. But I think there's so much more that we can do. And being Junior Minister of Tourism, I jump into ideas that, we could put out in the public, put out, so that persons will, let's say if they had a inclined to go to St. Thomas or go to St. Kitts, then they say, you know what, the BVI is offering something better. Let me just try, and come to the BVI, so we need to do like some spot-on advertisement that would catch people's eye and make them want to come. So I really want to improve a lot more, for us to improve a lot more on our tourism product, because that sells.
Now, how has your position as Junior Minister for Tourism benefited District 6?
It has benefited a lot when it comes to District 6. I have, well, I don't like to say but our government has, when I got elected, there's a beach at the end of the road going to east that we constructed. It was constructed in the earlier years, but I reconstructed it and added the benches, and ever so often I see tourists, the buses would stop there and persons would get out and take pictures, and I had the students painted the rocks different colors, so they're in a maze at how that looked, and the covered benches that are on the sand bank, because we built a sand bank, and put the rocks around to keep it up. So I smile when I go and I see the tourists there taking pictures or just hanging out, on the benches and having a drink. And then we did the Fisherman's Wharf, which I named after Omar Hajj, who was a representative. And persons, I see them visiting there and just strolling along and just looking at the plants and, whatever we put there. It's not completed yet to where I want to see it, but we've come a long way.
And what further projects would you like to see in your district in that regard?
Well, to complete the Fisherman Wharf the way I see it in my eyes, to make it more attractive to tourists, we would like to set up a YEP center in the district as well. I have had talks with investors who are willing to do this, but we haven't found the property yet. We're still looking for a suitable place where we could have this YEP center, because it's much needed in the district. It's very much needed. We had a gym, I think one of the first gym up in Bellevue that was destroyed. We would like to have that rebuilt. In the interim, we did an open basketball court, so that the persons in that area of the district would have some kind of recreational, facility. But we would like to construct that gym, put it back to how it was or better.
Okay. Now, you're familiar with the term Zone 6. It's said to be a term that you support, but it's also a term that has been noted to be gang-affiliated or alleged to be gang-affiliated in the territory. Given those negative connotations, why would you still support that term for your district?
Because it is not so. It is not at all gang-affiliated in any way. That is something that the young people decided to do. They had talks among themselves, and they say, this is our zone. And from there, it caught on as Zone 6, but it is not at all gang-affiliated, and I refute that claim by anyone who says that.
Now more than ever, there's a focus on transparency and good governance in the Virgin Islands. We can all admit that the territory is under a microscope from the international community. Why should voters trust you to deliver in those areas?
Well, right now, we had the COI investigations, and there are things that they're put in place that we have to get in place, at a certain time, which we're actively doing, and we have come a long way in putting them in place. So with these measures now put in place, that will be a high level of transparency, so everyone can see that yes, we're doing this correctly. Some representatives in government, some ministers have been accused of giving, certain jobs to friends. So now with these implementation, it can't happen. Everything has to go through a bidding system. Everything has to go through procurement. So it's not a one-man show. It's not a one ministry show. at all. So with these implementations,
do you believe that the findings of the COI are a fair representation of what has taken place in the Virgin Islands in recent years?
With the COI, they look at things differently from how we look at it. And I can't say if it was fair or not fair, but I know one thing that they did say in the report, that they found no signs of corruption, but there were things that we were doing that was not, that they didn't like. They felt that we were doing it wrong, and with talks with them, I said, okay, fine, we were doing these things wrong, but UK is our mother country. Help us to do it in the way that you think it should be done, instead of trying to suspend the Constitution. Walk us through it, put the guidelines in place so we could follow. And this is what they have done, put these guidelines and say, this is the proper way, we think you should be doing it. But it took how many years to do that? It took over 70 years that we've been doing this way. And now you come and say that this has been doing wrong over that time, So now these things are put in place, so we expect it to be a smooth sailing, so to speak, unless they come up with something else.
Yeah. Now, with the 48 recommendations of the COI, of course, there's implementation and there's the period of time it would take to see realistic change take place in the territory. Do you think it's realistic to believe that a single sitting government could bring about such change?
The changes can come, but me personally, I think the timeline to put the changes in place was too short, because we're talking about a whole host of, different things that you have to spend extra money on putting in place, which we don't have a problem with doing that, spending the money. But the time frame in 2 years, it's a lot. But we're trying, we're trying.
What are your views on the constitutional review, and what are some things that you would like to see added to the review if they're missing?
Well, we're due for constitutional changes. I'm in support of that. Oh boy, there's a lot of, I want to see us as a government have more autonomy when it comes to the Constitution. I do think that the governor has a little bit too much of power when it comes to us, because we're the ones that live here. We have to go through these things every day. We know what our people expect of us, and we know how they expect us to run the country. The governor only comes every 4 years, so to give them that kind of power, I think his power needs to be reduced. I have nothing against governance. I have nothing against governor, but we're the ones who ultimately have to live here, and our children and our grandchildren have to live here. So we have to assume more power in what goes on in the country, as opposed to, the governor having all of this autonomy.
To that end, what are your views on the Virgin Islands Constitution possibly being suspended?
I would hate for it to happen, because when I look back at our forefathers and how they fought so hard, to get us to where we are today. Remember, Grant Aid has been cancelled from us for forever, for over 50 years, and we've been fighting on our own, and we have built up records with banks, that are willing to give us loans, because we are always known to pay back, So, in essence, I always tell persons, I think we're independent, because it's like 70 years we haven't gotten grant aid. We have been doing this on our own. I mean, the UK has to certify any loan that we have, but we have been good stewards in paying back. So to suspend the Constitution is not something that, I would be happy about. It's putting us right back to where we were over 70 years ago, and we don't need to go back there. You know, we have children and we have grandchildren who are coming up and who will be able to run this country, so we have to try to protect it for them.
Now that you spoke about children and grandchildren, they say that the children are the future. So it's a future that we're starting to build right now. Where do you see the BVI in about 5-10 years?
5-10 years, God spare my life. To be honest, I want to see us more empowered when it comes to handling our own affairs. You know, I want to see the tourism product build up, you know, and I want more young people to get interested and study politics, you know, so that, you know, they could become good stewards and run this country. We have a great nation here we're trying to build, you know, we need to encourage our children to look at it not just politically, you know, but look at it in the eyes of their children to come, you know, so we could continue and build this great little nation. I love my country.
Now, you mentioned having young people study politics, and it's very important across the Caribbean, I believe, that young people are involved in the democratic process. Mm-hmm. Historically, there's been low voting numbers in the youth demographic. So what are you doing to encourage young people to be a part of the democratic process and to come out and vote?
Talking. I have been talking. I have been meeting with them. They come to my house. I have an open door policy. So, you know, it's kind of like my office. I have an office in town, but anybody's welcome to come there. And I sit with them and they would ask these questions and ask, how do you feel, you know, doing this? Is it hard? You know, and I'm like, no, it's not really hard when you love people. To be a politician, you have to love people. If you don't love people, it's going to be hard. And I love people. So it's, you know, it's not hard for me. So I try to explain to them how I see it and how I handle it in my eyes and in my view, so they can have a better understanding. And, you know, some of them are like, no, I'm afraid because look how bad they talk about you sometimes. Look how bad they talk about this one. You know, and I say you can't go into it thinking that way. You know, you have to go into it thinking, listen, I want to do this for my country. You know, I am not going to let my country go. And think about country and think about yourself and think about your children and their children.
Now, of course, you continue to speak about your love of country and the way you want to see the BVI grow. A lot of people believe that politicians are in what we call the game just for personal benefits, and should they not be re-elected, they might just disappear on the country altogether. Now, this may not be the favorite question of all politicians. It's not an outcome that they want to look at, but what are your professional, personal plans if you're not re-elected in this general election?
Well, if I'm not re-elected, I will still continue to let my voice be heard, especially when it comes to youth empowerment and youth activities and the elders, you know, who are dear to my heart. And I do have you know, catering business that me and my late husband started. So it's still thriving, so I would throw myself into that. My daughter also has a beauty salon, Envy, which I help out a lot with. So, you know, there are different things that I could throw myself into, but to give up on politics and, you know, on the country on a whole, no, my voice will still be heard.
Right, thank you so much for your response. Now we turn to some topics that are likely to still be at the forefront of discussions after the next general election. So my first question in that regard is, what are your views on same-sex marriage?
Stay tuned for more Just for the Record after these messages.
I am doing Kamal treatments with Beyond the Reef. Today we are doing shark research. So today we are doing whale research with Beyond the Reef. And wherever I go, I take CCT with me because my life is unlimited.
Yo, everything good, Dad?
Why? This thing got me one way, Daddy.
What you mean?
Ever since I hook up with this thing, can't eat, I can't sleep. This is the first thing I touch it when I reach home.
What you really? Hey, this ain't like you, you know.
Dad, this thing got me staying home, keeping out of trouble me.
Wow. What your name is?
She? I talking about my CCT life.
Don't worry about missing your favorite series, sports, news, and local programming. Come to CCT today and sign up for CCT Live to access over 80 channels. CCT Live. Bring it home.
1 month free trial turn into 5. 5 months turn into, well, you know I hop. I watching ball. I been watching football. Dad, Nickelodeon, Paw Patrol. I am hooked. Hook, I tell you.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us.
Now we turn to some topics that are likely to still be at the forefront of discussions after the next general election. So my first question in that regard is, what are your views on same-sex marriage?
I am a God-fearing woman. I'm a Christian, and the Bible says, "One man for a woman." I do not believe in it. I don't think it's right.
What are your views on the exploration of a cannabis industry in the BVI?
Medical wise, yes, I'm in agreement for it, because I've seen where many Caribbean countries have explored this and are now doing it, and it's bringing in income to the country. So once it's on medical marijuana, then I have no issues with it at all. And that was explained to me that that's what it's for.
Are you in favor of raising minimum wage?
Yes. Yes, most definitely. $6 an hour, it's time for a raise. And I understand the outcome of that, because businesses are saying if we raise minimum wage, then their product would have to raise, but that's the way the world is, you know. But it needs to be raised.
All right, and we come to our final question. I know we couldn't make it through this entire interview without asking plainly, why do you believe that your representation is what the people of the Virgin Islands need right now?
Right now, the people need, with all that we're facing and all that we have been through and what we probably would go through in the future, which I'm hoping that the future will be brighter, is persons who care. You know, some persons feel I have too much of a quiet demeanor, but you don't need to be rough or loud to get your points across or to listen to people. I'm a good listener. So persons always look for people that they can speak to and not always want somebody to speak to them. They just want somebody to listen. And I listen. So I think that's the part that draws people to me. And my house, like I said, is always open. Persons have the freedom to come, you know, whether they want something to eat or whether they just want a resting place. I was telling my kids the other day, I remember at one point I had 13 young men staying in my house. And I remember my daughter and son used to, you know, they used to get upset. You know, I wake up in the morning time and I'm literally stepping over persons to get to the kitchen to cook breakfast, you know. But if they have nowhere to stay at that time, and what made me feel so good one morning, one of them got up and said, "Ma, I need to speak to you." And I said, "What did I do?" I said, "What did you do now?" And he said, "No, I just want to hug you and thank you, because if you hadn't taken me in, I would have been in jail right now." You know, so that warms your heart, you know, to hear a young person say something like that. You know, I had one young man came to spend a weekend with my son. He ended up spending 10 years, you know, until he was able, you know, to go out. So that's to me what people want, a caring heart, you know, caring heart.
All right. Now, of course, you came prepared for the interview. I noticed you have a document in your hand. You shared that with us also.
Yes.
So, you know, instead of turning to it, I just want to ask you candidly, what are some things we could expect you to take on should you be reelected?
Well, like I mentioned, the completion of the Fisherman's Wharf, it's usable, yes, it is, but to complete it, the YEP Center is something that is on our list for the next 4 years. The gym in Bellevue, there are some roads in the district that persons have to walk on still. So we're going to attack that forcefully. Some we have already completed, but those we will, tackle for the next 4 years, because we have persons that are walking home from since the storms, couldn't get financing, to build back the roads properly. So those are things that we're going to attack forcefully for the next 4 years. Setting up. People often ask me, how come you don't have a district office? And I would say, well, the district office is my house because, a room was allocated in the community center in Purcell. But it's a long story that I won't want to get into where someone was occupying it. And, but we would tackle that now. And now that the center is now refurbished, then we would go actively and assume the room that was originally thing. But I do have the office in town. And like I said, my house is open. And persons, would find me and come to me. And it's no problem,
All right, thank you so much, Mrs. Maduro Caines, for being with us today. I really do hope that the persons of the Virgin Islands find this information valuable to their experience at the 2023 general elections. Yeah. I'm Jhaka Wooding, and this has been Just for the Record.
Welcome to Just for the Record, a political mini-series where Ron Grant, Kamal, Haynes, and Jhaka Wooding sit down with the territory's present and future leaders contesting in the 2023 elections. We're tired of the same old political talking points, so we're doing something about it. We've reached out to every single candidate to ask them the tough questions. For instance, what's your take on same-sex marriage?
Every single person has the right to private and family life.
Everyone has their choice, everyone has their opinion, everyone has their beliefs.
I leave it for the professionals. You should have the right to decide. I'm not going to tell you you shouldn't do it or anything. It's not for me to do.
Marijuana.
Once it's a medical marijuana, then I have no issues with it at all.
I would support that.
Medicinal cannabis can help us with many of the ailments that our people right now are suffering from.
We have to make sure that whatever industry that we invest in, that the economics of it makes sense.
The cost of living.
We will look at all avenues and all the possibilities to ensure that we look at how we can manage the cost of living in this territory.
Living in the BVI based on that minimum wage, I think it's $6.50. How can a family survive?
It's pretty high. Rent prices are pretty high. Can we do something about the prices that within the supermarkets?
And much more, along with the not-so-serious questions as well.
I did drink a lot of guava berry during the Christmas season.
So tune in for the real story on all the territory's candidates running for office. Just for the Record, starting April 4th, 2023 on all our social media platforms, only on 284 Media.